Do you believe in ghosts? The Bowen sisters do, or at least they did. When they initially heard knocks, scratches, and whispers in their house, they thought maybe their mother was communicating with them from beyond the grave. But the truth was far more sinister. Hello, strangers and strangelings. Welcome back to the Strange Bar and Grill. I'm serving up another true crime story time. So pull up a chair if you like strange true crime and storytelling, because this is the place to be, right here with me, JP. So kick back and grab a drink or a snack, and always tip that like button because it helps with the channel. Join that SBG family by subscribing and hitting that notification bell to make sure you're getting notified when I release a weekly video. All right, let's go. Teen sisters Tina and Karen Bowen lived in a small Massachusetts town with their father, Frank. They had recently lost their mother to cancer. Now, a household of only one income, Frank started working longer hours to make ends meet, leaving the girls home alone more often. While Frank was at work, Tina and Karen pulled out a Ouija board and decided to have a seance in the hopes they could communicate with their mother. The girls tried for hours and hours, but nothing happened. Eventually, they gave up and retired to their bedrooms. A few hours later, the girls were startled awake by strange tapping sounds coming from within the walls. They huddled together and listened intently to the noises, which only got louder and louder with each tap. The sisters were confident that they were being contacted by their mother from beyond the grave. Shit. Tina and Karen told their father when he returned home from work, but he brushed them off as just little kids being silly. The two girls were devastated over the loss of their mother, and Frank believed grief was letting their imagination run wild. He told his daughters he would take them, to counseling if it continued. Night after night, the girls woke up to these eerie tapping sounds. They yelled for their father, but by the time Frank got there, it would just be dead quiet. And over the next few weeks, the family would often return home to find furniture moved around, food missing from the fridge, and just random items out of place. And at this point, Frank was just mentally exhausted. And Frank told Tina and Karen to put an end to whatever pranks they were up to, but the girls just insisted they had nothing to do with it, at all. And at this point, the sisters were convinced that their house was plagued by an evil spirit or a ghost. And from there, things just took a very, very terrifying turn. One cold winter evening in December of 1986, the girls heard tapping sounds coming from the basement. They grabbed a kitchen knife and rushed downstairs, only to find a disturbing message scrawled on a wall in what appeared to be blood. It read, "Come find me. I'm in your closet." Shit. Terrified, Tina and Karen ran out of the house screaming. They frantically knocked on the front door of their neighbor's home, and he allowed them to wait inside until their father returned from work. And when Frank came home and saw the writing on the wall, he told the girls that this is enough. I've had enough of this. And he immediately enrolled them in therapy the very next day. A few days went by and everything seemed like it had returned to normal somewhat. The tapping sounds had ceased and everything stayed in its place. Nothing was being moved around and shuffled anymore. That was until December 8th, 1986. That evening, the sisters heard tapping sounds coming from Tina's bedroom. They went inside, and written on the wall was, "I'm back. Find me if you can." Once again, they ran to their neighbor. And when Frank returned home from work, he decided to search the house from top to bottom to prove to his daughters that this wasn't the work of a spooky ghost. However, when Frank opened the front door, he discovered that his home had been ransacked and vandalized. Furniture was upside down and everything was just scattered all about. Glued on the ceiling, there were these hundreds of pennies, and there was a message on the wall in red that said, "Marry me." Frank slowly made his way up to Tina's bedroom, where he made a bone-chilling discovery. Standing in his daughter's closet was a strange boy wielding a hatchet. and he was wearing makeup, a blonde wig, and a wedding dress belonging to Frank's deceased wife. The boy would lunge at Frank and just kind of like push past him, and he ran downstairs and seemingly just vanished into thin air. Frantic, Frank ran to his neighbor's home and told him to call the police, but when officers arrived, they couldn't find anyone inside the house. Frank was just confused at this point. Where did this boy go? And who was he, and how did he manage to evade capture so quickly? It was just a strange mystery. Terrified, the Bowen family moved in with some relatives, and just 2 days later, Frank returned to his house to, grab a few items that him and the girls needed. And as he pulled into the driveway, he kind of looks up at the house and he saw this shadowy figure wearing a dress through the window. Panicked, Frank called the police again, and this time they found something in the basement that shocked everyone to their very core. Officer Bazanson said, "When I opened the door, on the right-hand wall, I saw a knife sticking out of the wall, and I see it's through a picture, a family picture. Written on it is, 'I'm still here, come find me.' And on another wall, I saw another picture saying, 'I'm going to kill you,' with a knife through it." Now, as the police searched the house, they actually found behind the washer, there was like a piece of wood that concealed a secret crawl space. It went all around the entire house, with peepholes in every room. Officers found 17-year-old Daniel LaPlante burrowed deep inside. Daniel had planned to brutally attack the Bowen sisters in their dead mother's clothing. Fortunately, Frank put an end to his twisted plot. Shit, man, can you imagine that? Like, he's wearing their dead mother's clothing and he was going to murder them? Dirty bastard right there. As it turned out, Daniel was no stranger to Tina, actually. So one day, a few weeks earlier, Tina received a call from Daniel claiming he was a friend of a friend. He told Tina he was handsome, athletic, a popular jock who went to her school. Tina and Daniel spoke on the phone numerous times, and she even opened up to him about her mother's death. Eventually, Tina agreed to go on a date with Daniel, but when he arrived at her home to pick her up, she was surprised to find that he was the exact opposite of what he had described. He was a straight catfish. This dude talking about he's a 10, he's a -3. He had greasy hair, acne, poor hygiene, and he was just a mess. And it was clear that he had not been taking care of himself. But Tina, not wanting to hurt his feelings, went ahead with the date, and they walked to a nearby ice cream parlor where she started to get a strange feeling in her gut. It was probably the smell of his body odor churning her stomach. Daniel kept asking Tina bizarre, deeply inappropriate questions. He wanted to know how she felt when her mother died, and particularly how much she had suffered. Tina later said he seemed like he was very obsessed with her mother's death. Tina felt uncomfortable, and her instinct told her that something just wasn't right here. I don't know what tipped it off, maybe because this dude's a freaking weirdo and he stinks like ass. She ended the date early, returned home, and refused to answer Daniel's calls. And in an act of revenge, Daniel decided to hunt her. Daniel lived with his mother Elaine, his stepfather David, and several siblings. He suffered physical, psychological, and sexual abuse at the hands of both his biological father and his stepfather. So mom sure knows how to pick some fucking sick people to be around her kids. Daniel was diagnosed with dyslexia as a child, and he was bullied by his fellow classmates, who often called him creepy and weird. His classmates were spot on. His classmates are very observant, skill they possess. As a teen, school officials noted Daniel's resistance to practice hygiene and other odd behavior. Dude had swamp ass out the frame. He was sent to a psychiatrist who diagnosed him with hyperactivity disorder and who also sexually abused him during their sessions. What the Jesus? It was at this point that Daniel, at the time 15 years old, started breaking into homes, stealing valuable possessions, and moving various items around in an effort to torment random strangers. One of the homes belonged to friends of the Bowen family, and it was there he found their phone number and called Tina. Obviously, they went out on a date, and after Tina rejected Daniel, he broke into her house and found the crawl space. He tormented the Bowen sisters, listened in on their personal conversations, and he watched them through peepholes that he carved himself and wrote sadistic messages in ketchup in an effort to terrify them. And after Daniel was discovered in the crawl space, he was charged with armed assault. The teen was sent to a juvenile detention facility where he spent the next 10 months. A judge released Daniel in October 1987 on $10,000 bail. Poor decision, a freaking horrible, stupid decision that would lead to the deaths of 3 other people. Immediately after his release, Daniel broke into a neighbor's home and stole 2 handguns. And what he did next was much more horrific than moving around furniture or taunting a family with disturbing messages. On December 1st, 1987, Daniel would break into another home belonging to Andrew and Priscilla Gustafson. He murdered Priscilla, a pregnant 33-year-old nursery school teacher, and the couple's 2 children while Andrew was at work. Afterward, Daniel went to a birthday party for his 6-year-old niece, ate cake, socialized, was having drinks, laughing, having a good old merry time, just as if like nothing happened. It was just a regular day. But Andrew returned home from work. He found his beloved wife lying face down in her bed, surrounded by a pool of dried blood. She had been sexually assaulted and shot in the head twice. Their 2 children, 5-year-old William and 7-year-old Abigail, were in the bathtub, and tragically, they both had been drowned. In the blink of an eye, Andrew lost his entire family. Found inside the Gustafson home were 2 .22 caliber bullet casings, an open can of beer, ligatures made out of pantyhose, and semen stains. And aware that Daniel had just been released from a juvenile facility and that he only lived half a mile away, the authorities put him on the list of prime suspects. Daniel was standing on the front porch of his house when investigators arrived to question him. When he saw them, he ran into the woods. What ensued was an intense manhunt involving helicopters and tracker dogs. While on the run, Daniel abducted a female neighbor at gunpoint and forced her to drive him around. Luckily, she managed to escape. While the police were searching for Daniel, they executed a search warrant at his home and found a cable box and a cordless phone belonging to the Gustafsons with his fingerprints on them. They also found a t-shirt belonging to Daniel and a pair of gloves in the woods near his house. 3 days after the murders, the police found Daniel hiding in a dumpster, and he was placed under arrest for 3 counts of murder. Daniel's brother, Daniel LaPlante, found the murder weapon in the glove box of a car belonging to their parents 4 months later on April 7th, 1988. The bullet casings matched the gun, fibers from Daniel's t-shirt and socks were found at the crime scene, and shoe prints on a flower bed outside of the Gustafson home matched to a pair of Converse sneakers he owned. The final nail in the coffin for Daniel was when tracker dogs picked up a scent from Priscilla's pillow, which had been used to muffle the sound of the gunshots, and they followed it directly to Daniel's home. Daniel was ordered to undergo a psychiatric examination, and it was determined that he was sane at the time of the murders. He pleaded not guilty, went to trial in October 1988, and was convicted on all counts by a jury. Daniel showed no remorse and smiled throughout the entire trial. He received 3 life sentences without the possibility of parole. In 2017, the Supreme Court ruled that juveniles could not be sentenced to life without parole. At a resentencing hearing, Daniel, then at the time 47, apologized to the Gustafson family for the first time, stating, "I do not have the words to fully express my profound sorrow, but I am truly sorry for the harm that I've caused. In the very essence of who I am, from the depths of my soul, I am sorry." That's like getting an apology from Satan. Don't buy that shit. However, Daniel showed no emotion whatsoever, and it was clear that his apology was insincere and manufactured with a selfish motive in mind. Daniel was resentenced to 3 life sentences with the possibility of parole after serving 45 years. He will be eligible for parole in the year 2032. Do not let that man out. Alright guys, that's going to be it for today. If you guys are new to my channel and you like today's story, please consider joining that SBG family by subscribing and hitting that notification button to make sure you guys are getting notified when I release my weekly videos. And if you're already part of the SBG family, hit that like button, share this video, leave a comment for me, let me know how I'm doing, let me know how you're doing. Anyway guys, let me know what you guys think about this case. This was a wild one, this was a scary one. Just thinking of someone living in your walls, I think they call that phrogging. Phrogging, phrogging, where people live in your house and kind of sneak around. I guess you don't know it. Creepy. That's nightmare fuel right there. Be safe, be good,